So I'm going to talk about rebellious versus obedient. And in it, I'm going to share my views about the quote unquote wicked, what wicked really is. Um, some people describe themselves as rebellious. Some people, some people have, some people have been described as rebellious all their life. Um, my questions about being rebellious. Is it really rebellious, or is it simply I don't want to do what you want me to do, or I don't want to do what you expect of me? You see, I like Bob Marley, and he labeled his music rebel music, and now this is about 30 years later, and the world is waking up and realizing, maybe he was onto something. Maybe the rebel music that he produced, it maybe he was rebelling because he was listening to a voice of authority greater than the authorities that existed at that time. And this really makes me think as a mom, with my son, I want to be very, very cautious on how I view that word rebellion. Because is he rebelling against, well, I should say it like this. Is his behavior rebellious, or does he have a rebellious attitude? And the reason I say that is because I want him to I want him to rebel. I don't want him to do everything that he is told. Why? Because he has a brain. And having a brain and a cognitive ability to think for himself is amazing. Now he started walking, and now he decides he knows where he wants to go. And as a nurturer, I think my job is to not break him so that he goes where I want him to go, but stop and explain to him, you're just not, your senses are not fully aware of everything just yet, where he doesn't actually know his location to have that choice to go where he wants to go. But one day, when I interact with him, I think one day he will know where he is, and he will know where he wants to go. And it may not be where I want him to go. But I think I think it's realizing the difference between a rebellious behavior and a rebellious attitude. And a rebellious behavior is simply saying, I see you, I hear you, and I know this is a direction you think is the best for me. However, I have processed that, and that is not the direction where I choose to go. That's not the direction I choose to use my free will. And I have full awareness of the consequences of not going that direction. And I also take responsibility for what happens when I go the opposite direction. Yes, that is an act of rebellion, but that it's a rebellion that is actually being obedient to an authority higher than the authority at present. And I don't think that we could discredit that as a rebellious attitude, because a rebellious attitude is way different. A rebellious attitude says, I ain't listening to nobody. I don't care who you are. I don't even care about what you're saying. I have not even processed or stopped and listened to what you had to say. I already made up my mind as to what I want to do, and I'm going to go in that direction, regardless. And I think when you have a rebellious attitude, I feel as though people who demonstrate a rebellious attitude live a life full of regret. These are the people who 30 years later say, I should have listened to mom and dad. I should have listened to my teachers. I should have listened to that old man at the street corner. I should have listened to my friend who was trying to tell me so and so and so. I think a person with a rebellious attitude has a lot of regrets because they are exercising their free will, but in a very harmful way, where that thought process, that awareness of, am I doing this because it's what I want to do and it's in my best interest and it is following my route of integrity? Or am I doing this action because it is opposite to what everybody else is doing and I'm not going to do what everybody else is doing? I'm going to do what I want to do, even if it is to my own detriment. Um, and when I do it, then I get mad at the world and then I'm blaming everyone. I think a rebellious attitude has a lot of blame in it. And when I think about this, I think about people in the world, in the history, who have had a rebellious attitude versus people who have had a rebellious behavior. You think about all the people who protested the Vietnam War, who wanted peace, the people who said, we weren't going to go to fight. We're not going to go to fight because this goes against nature. This goes against man. Nobody wins a war. I think about all the singers who, you know, sung in their own way, in their own tune, in their own style against systems of oppression. I think about people who fought for justice like Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, 27 years in jail. These people projected and promoted rebellious behavior, but it's because they were listening to an authority greater than the authorities that existed at that time. They were listening to a source higher than the source, who felt as though they had the right to impose their thoughts. And that rebellious behavior, I think, looking at the consequences of it, um, whether their movements would have been tragic to them, whether things, I mean, fortunately, things worked out in their favor. But if it did not work out in their favor, if lives were lost and their cause was not realized, I don't think these people would have looked back and blamed anyone for their outcomes. I don't think they would have regret for doing what they did, even if they weren't successful, because it was a it was a not an attitude of rebellion, but it was a behavior that said, I am choosing to exercise my free will in this aspect. And whatever happens, I take 100% responsibility. No one to blame, good or bad. The onus is on me. So I think this really, as we interact with people and we're in our mind, as because we're all humans and we quick to say, oh, why are you being rebellious? I think we need to separate rebellious behavior from a rebellious attitude, and knowing which is which because even if you choose to rebel against a certain standard or product or whatever is placed upon you, you also want to be careful that you don't align yourself with people who just have a rebellious attitude. And you see this a lot with protests. Protest turns violent very quickly, and a lot of times it's because someone who is has a good cause and they're saying, hey, no, I'm going to exercise my free will. I'm going to stand up for this. People with a rebellious attitude who have not thought about it and they're just in for the fight or for the loot, they join themselves with someone who's standing up for a cause, and then you get riots and massacre, and it just does not create a positive spirit, and it leaves a very bitter taste in the minds and hearts of others. So as if you're a young person and you are listening to this, that's something I would really, really suggest that you sit and you think, do I really have a rebellious attitude? Or am I just choosing to exercise my free will and listen to a higher authority than the authorities that be? And if you are, just be careful of the people and the places you choose to align yourself, because it's not one and the same. And you want to be very careful, because the outcomes are different. And I don't think anybody should ever regret exercising their free will. So many women were burnt to the stakes, um, because they kept their integrity. And I think when you exercise your free will with full integrity, when you die, if you die, you won't regret it. You won't regret it. So that's my thought. I feel passionate about this, but rebellion. And as far as wicked, we'll talk about that next time. Stay tuned.